My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 34 years old, a single mother, and an accountant living in Asheville, North Carolina. If you passed me on the street, you'd probably think I was just another woman juggling work, bills, and raising a child. And you'd be right, except behind the quiet home, the lunch boxes, and the bedtime stories, there's a history I've buried for years, one I hoped I'd never have to revisit, but this isn't just about me. This is about my daughter, Lily. She's 6, with soft brown curls, bright eyes that seem too wise for her age, and a giggle that makes the world feel safe again for both of us. She's my everything, the reason I keep going, the reason I healed, or at least, I thought I had. It had been 5 years since I last saw my parents. 5 years since I walked out of that cold house in Ohio and swore never to look back. But when I received news that my grandmother, my only source of warmth growing up, was on her deathbed, I caved. I told myself Lily deserved to at least meet her great-grandmother once, so we packed our bags and drove north. I told myself it would only be a weekend, that I could handle it. I was wrong. What happened in that house, what they allowed to happen to Lily, tore open every old wound I had sewn shut. And when my sister, Amanda, raised her hand and slapped my daughter across the face, and my parents just sat there, I knew the past hadn't just followed me. It had found a new target. And I wasn't going to let it destroy her like it tried to destroy me. I didn't grow up in a house of shouting or slamming doors. Ours was a quiet household. And in many ways, that was worse. The Carters were a family of appearances. We lived in a tidy colonial-style home just outside of Dayton, Ohio. Dad Charles was a mechanical engineer who measured his words as precisely as he measured blueprints. Mom Eleanor was a former librarian turned homemaker who ruled the house with a polished smile and tight, understated disapproval. We had dinner at 6, napkins in laps, no elbows on the table. We went to church every Sunday, pressed and perfect. But beneath the structure was a coldness that crept through the walls, one that I, the eldest daughter, knew all too well. My sister, Amanda, was 3 years younger than me, blonde, charming, and always ready with a rehearsed "yes, ma'am." From the moment she could walk, she was the sun to our parents' world. She could break a vase and be told she was just energetic. I could get a B+ in math and be given a full lecture on underachieving. I wasn't a rebellious kid. I did my homework, kept curfews, volunteered at church events. But I asked questions. I hesitated when told to just smile and be polite. I didn't play the part they wanted. And in our house, that meant I was the difficult one. My childhood is filled with memories of being invisible in my own home. Amanda would come home with a drawing from school, and it would be taped proudly to the fridge. I once won 2nd place in a statewide essay competition. My mother's response: "Why not first?" I used to watch them, my parents and Amanda, laughing at the dinner table like a perfectly written sitcom scene. I'd sit quietly, chewing slowly, trying not to choke on the silence they reserved just for me. It wasn't until high school that I realized this wasn't normal. I had a teacher, Mrs. Hill, who once pulled me aside after class and said, "Rachel, you don't have to shrink to fit into someone else's mold." I didn't fully understand it at the time, but her words stayed with me. Then came college applications. I had my sights set on a creative writing program at a university out of state. Writing had always been my escape, the only place I felt heard. But my parents were horrified. "Out of state," my father said, folding his newspaper down slowly like I'd just confessed to a crime. "Absolutely not. You'll go to Ohio State like everyone else in this family." "I want to study writing," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "A degree in daydreaming." Mom scoffed. "You'll end up working at a coffee shop." Amanda, of course, had no such trouble. When she applied to a fashion business program in New York, they threw her a going-away brunch. Balloons, cake, gifts. I never had a brunch. Eventually, I caved. I studied accounting, practical, safe, respectable. And I was good at it because I had to be. Excellence was the only way I could stay visible. In college, I met Nate. He was soft-spoken, kind, and laughed at my dry humor. He was the first person who truly made me feel seen. We dated for 2 years, got married after graduation, and moved to Asheville for his job in IT. It was the farthest I'd ever lived from Ohio, and for once, I could breathe. We weren't rich, but we were happy. I started writing again. Nate supported it, even read my work out loud in silly voices to make me laugh. And then, Lily came. She was born in the early morning of a quiet March day. I remember holding her for the first time and realizing, this is the first person in my life who will know me as Mom, not as the disappointment. We sent photos to my parents. No reply. Amanda left a comment under the Facebook post, cute. Hope she doesn't get your serious face. I didn't respond. When Lily was 2, Nate was killed in a car accident on his way home from work. A truck ran a red light. He died instantly. The next few months were a blur, grief, sleepless nights, diapers, bills. I kept going because I had to. Because Lily needed someone to hold the pieces together. I never got a condolence card from my parents. Never a phone call. Not even a text. And in a strange way, that made things simpler. I finally stopped expecting them to show up. Instead, I built my own version of family. Our neighbor, Mrs. Lewis, would bring over lasagna on rough days. Lily's preschool teacher would stay a few minutes late when I was stuck in traffic. I pieced together a support system from scraps. But it worked. I learned how to fix leaky faucets from YouTube. I figured out how to file taxes with one income. I even started writing again, short stories this time, mostly about mothers and daughters finding each other in broken places. Then, 5 years after walking away from Ohio, the call came. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. Rachel, a familiar voice croaked. It was my mother. I stood frozen in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear. As she said the words I never expected to hear. Your grandmother's not doing well. She's asking for you. My heart caught in my throat. Grandma June was the only person in that family who had ever made me feel loved. When I was little, she'd sneak me extra cookies, stroke my hair, and whisper, "You're enough, baby girl. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." I didn't say yes right away. But that night, as I tucked Lily into bed and she asked, "Mommy, what's a great grandma?" I knew I had to go. Not for my parents, not for Amanda, for Grandma June, and maybe for Lily to see where I came from. We packed lightly, just enough clothes for a weekend. I told myself it would be short, that I could handle a couple days, that it would be different this time. But even as I set the GPS for Dayton and pulled out of our driveway, my stomach twisted with unease. The road back to my past had always been closed for a reason, and I was about to remember why. The drive to Dayton was long and gray, like a memory you wish you could forget but can't seem to shake. The early spring skies were overcast, trees still bare, and the highways littered with billboards advertising fast food, personal injury lawyers, and Jesus. Lily sat in the back seat with her stuffed rabbit, Bella, humming to herself and drawing in her notebook. I watched her through the rearview mirror and told myself, just 2 days, we'll get through this. As we approached the neighborhood where I grew up, my breath caught. The Carter house still stood the same 2-story brick, white shutters, a neat lawn that always looked more like a display than a place to play. Everything about it was too perfect, too sterile. The bushes trimmed into identical ovals, the porch swing that no one ever used. I parked at the curb and sat there for a few seconds. Hand on the ignition. "Mommy, is this it?" Lily asked, her voice soft. I nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. This is Grandma and Grandpa's house." Lily stared out the window. "It looks kind of serious," I smiled sadly. That's a good word for it. We walked up the path together. I knocked once, twice. The door opened, and there she was, Eleanor Carter. My mother looking exactly as I remembered, flawless hair pulled into a bun. Lipstick the same shade of cranberry she always wore, eyes scanning me like I was a resume she wasn't impressed by. "Rachel," she said coolly. "Hi, Mom." Her eyes drifted to Lily. "So this is the girl. This is Lily," I said, resting a hand on my daughter's shoulder. "Your granddaughter." There was a pause, then a forced smile. "Come in." We stepped inside, the scent of lemon polish and something faintly medicinal hitting me at once. The living room hadn't changed. Same beige carpet, same porcelain angel figurines on the mantel, same silence that made everything feel like a museum. Charles' dad was sitting in his recliner, reading the paper. He didn't stand. "Rachel," he said flatly. "You made it." "I did." He looked at Lily but said nothing. Lily gave a little wave. "Hi." Dad gave a short nod and went back to his newspaper. That was the welcome. Amanda was upstairs with her daughter, Sophie. I hadn't seen her in nearly 6 years. The last time we spoke, she called me selfish for leaving town and naive for marrying someone without a trust fund. When she finally came downstairs, it was like no time had passed at all. Amanda looked polished in a designer top and perfectly tailored jeans, her blonde hair curled just so. Sophie, her daughter, trailed behind her with a tablet in her hands. "Well, look what the wind blew in," Amanda said with a smirk. "The prodigal daughter returns." I bit my tongue. "Hi, Amanda." She looked at Lily, her tone turning syrupy. "And you must be little Lily. Aren't you just a tiny version of your mom?" Lily didn't answer. She clung to my leg, clearly uncomfortable. "Don't be shy," Amanda said, waving her manicured hand. "We're all family here." No, we weren't, not really. Later that evening, I finally saw Grandma June. She was in the downstairs guest room, her frame small beneath heavy quilts, oxygen tube running along her cheek. Her face lit up when I entered. "Rachel," she whispered, her voice fragile but warm. "I knew you'd come." I sat by her side, holding her hand. Lily stood shyly at the door, and I motioned for her to come in. "Grandma, this is Lily." June's eyes welled with tears. "Oh, she's beautiful, just like you were." I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until the words left her lips. For a brief moment, I felt like a little girl again, seen, cherished, real. That night, I tucked Lily into the bed Amanda had begrudgingly offered Sophie's old toddler bed. It was too small, and the sheets smelled like mothballs, but Lily didn't complain. She held Bella tightly and whispered, "Why is everyone here so serious?" I smiled. "Because they don't know how to laugh anymore. Will I have to stay here a lot?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. Just this weekend. Then we go back home." "Good," she said. "I miss our window with the plants." I kissed her forehead. Me too. The next morning started tense and only grew worse. At breakfast, Amanda talked over everyone, bragging about Sophie's piano recital and how she had already started applying for gifted programs. "Even though she was only 6, she's just so advanced," Amanda said, sipping coffee. "It's like she's meant for more." Mom nodded in agreement. You can see the difference. Sophie's always so composed. Not like most kids. I glanced at Lily, who was quietly eating her toast, swinging her legs. I knew exactly what Mom meant. After breakfast, I took Lily outside to get some fresh air. We walked the neighborhood, and I showed her the tree I used to climb as a kid, the spot I used to sit and read when I needed to disappear. Lily listened intently, holding my hand the entire time. "Were you happy here?" she asked. I paused. "Sometimes. But mostly, I just wanted to get away." Lily nodded solemnly. "I like our house better." I smiled. "Me too." That afternoon, Mom decided we should all have a family dinner. I offered to help cook, but she declined, said she had a system. Amanda was already in charge of the seating chart. Of course. Rachel and Lily can sit near the end, she said. It'll be easier for Lily to get up if she needs something. Translation: keep her out of the spotlight. Dinner was quiet at first. Polite chewing, glasses clinking. Lily was seated next to Sophie, and I tried to keep an eye on them, but I couldn't watch everything. At one point, Sophie leaned across the table to grab the salt shaker. Her elbow knocked over a cup of juice. It splashed across the table and onto Sophie's dress. Before anyone could react, Amanda jumped up, eyes blazing. Are you kidding me? She turned on Lily. You need to be careful, you just ruined her new dress. Lily shrank into her chair. I didn't touch anything. Don't lie, Amanda snapped, reaching over, then, in one swift, horrifying motion, she slapped Lily across the cheek. The room fell silent. Forks froze midair. I stood up so fast my chair scraped hard against the floor. Amanda, I said, my voice shaking. What did you just do? She needs to learn to respect other people's space, Amanda said, unapologetic. You should have taught her that. Lily burst into tears, clutching her face. I turned to my parents, begging for someone to step in. But my father just said, without looking up from his plate, she'll be fine. And my mother added, Amanda was right to discipline her. It's about time someone did. I stared at them, heart pounding, breath caught in my throat. That's when I knew they hadn't changed, not one bit. The slap rang in my ears long after the sound had faded. Lily sobbed beside me, her small hands trembling as they clutched Bella, her stuffed rabbit, now stained with spilled juice and tears. Her cheeks were flushed, not just from the sting of Amanda's hand, but from the humiliation of it, her confusion, her heartbreak. She didn't understand what had happened, why an adult she barely knew had hurt her in front of a room full of people who said nothing. I knelt beside her chair, my hands shaking. It's okay, baby, I whispered, brushing her hair back. I've got you. But it wasn't okay, not even close. I turned back toward Amanda. She had already sat down, acting like nothing had happened. My mother sipped her wine. My father continued chewing, as if someone hadn't just physically assaulted his 6-year-old granddaughter at his dinner table. I felt something cold and sharp crawl through my chest. Not anger fury, not fear clarity. I'm done, I said aloud. Standing. Amanda rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Rachel. Don't start being dramatic. I ignored her. Lily, go get your things, sweetheart. We're leaving. Lily hesitated, eyes darting to the adults around her. But what about we're leaving? Now? Amanda scoffed. Seriously, over a spilled drink, I rounded on her. No. Amanda, over a slap. Over the fact that you hit my daughter like she was a problem to be corrected. And over the fact that our parents, I'd turned to Eleanor and Charles, who still sat unmoved, just watched it happen, like it was normal. Like she deserved it. She was clumsy, Mom said coolly, setting down her glass. Accidents have consequences. She's 6, I snapped. She didn't even knock it over. But even if she had, how dare you justify someone laying a hand on her? She needs discipline, Dad said without looking at me. You've always been too soft. There it was. The same sentence I'd heard my entire childhood, this time aimed at my daughter. I felt my throat tighten. But I wouldn't cry here. Not in front of them. Not again. I don't know why I thought coming back would be different, I said, my voice low and tight. Why I thought you'd care about your granddaughter. But this tells me everything I need to know. I picked Lily up, cradling her against my chest. Her sobs had quieted to sniffles, but she clung to me like I was the only solid ground in the room, and maybe I was. I'll pack her things, I said, already heading for the guest room. Amanda stood too. This is ridiculous. She'll forget about it in a day. I paused at the stairs. No, Amanda, you will. She won't. Just like I never forgot what it felt like to be invisible in this house. Upstairs. I threw clothes into Lily's duffel bag without bothering to fold them. I grabbed Bella from the floor and wiped the rabbit's ear gently with a tissue. Lily sat on the bed, still quiet, watching me with wide, tired eyes. "Mommy," she finally whispered. "Did I do something bad I stopped?" My heart cracked wide open. "No, sweetheart," I said, kneeling to meet her eyes. "You did nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. You hear me? Nothing." She nodded slowly. But I saw the doubt linger. I zipped the bag and took her hand. As we descended the stairs, I didn't look back into the dining room. I didn't say goodbye. We walked into the night air, cool and still, like the world itself was holding its breath. I buckled Lily into her seat, climbed into the driver's side, and started the car with numb fingers. "Where are we going?" Lily asked. "Back home," I said, "where you're safe." We drove for hours in silence, broken only by Lily's occasional questions. Why did she hit me? Does Grandma not like me? Am I going to be in trouble each time? I gave her the only answer I could. No, none of this is about you. It's about them, and we're not going back there again. Lily eventually drifted to sleep, her head leaning against the window, Bella held close. I kept driving, eyes fixed on the dark highway ahead, lit only by the distant glow of passing towns and the occasional blink of red taillights. When we got home to Asheville, it was almost 3 a.m. I carried Lily inside, tucked her into her bed, kissed her forehead, and sat beside her for a long while, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breath. I wanted to believe this nightmare was over, but I knew the real work had just begun. The next morning, over toast and orange juice, Lily barely spoke. Her usual chatter was gone. She didn't ask about the weather or what we'd do that weekend. She just sat, small and quiet, biting at the corner of her toast. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" I asked gently. She shook her head. I didn't push. That afternoon, I called a child therapist, Dr. Anna Reynolds, a woman recommended by Lily's pediatrician. I explained what had happened, my voice steady until the end, when I heard myself say, "She thinks she did something wrong." She's 6, and she's already blaming herself for someone else's cruelty. Dr. Reynolds listened. Then she said, "Bring her in. We'll take it one step at a time." That night, after Lily went to bed, I wrote a letter. It wasn't long. It didn't need to be. "Mom, Dad, Amanda, what happened at that dinner was unforgivable. I brought my daughter into your home trusting that she would be safe, welcomed, and loved. Instead, she was humiliated and hurt, and you all stood by and let it happen. I'm done pretending this family exists. Do not call. Do not write. Do not reach out again. Rachel, I didn't mail it. Not yet. I wasn't writing it for them. I was writing it for me." The next week, Lily began therapy. At first, she didn't say much. She sat quietly, drawing pictures. But they were dark, thick scribbles, storm clouds, a little girl alone in a big house. Dr. Reynolds said it was normal, that children express pain in ways we can't always see. She'll heal, she told me. But it takes safety. It takes time, and most of all, it takes someone who won't let it happen again. I nodded. That's me. Every day after that, I showed up. For Lily. For myself. I made pancakes shaped like hearts. We danced in the kitchen. We planted a sunflower in a clay pot and named it Brighty. I read her bedtime stories where brave girls slayed dragons with kindness and came home to warm houses filled with love. And slowly, Lily started laughing again. But I didn't forget what had happened. I couldn't. because that slap wasn't just about a spilled drink. It was about everything I had escaped and everything I swore I'd never pass on, somewhere between the bedtime stories and therapy sessions. The light began to come back into Lily's eyes, but it didn't return all at once. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days were better than others. Some nights, she'd crawl into my bed at 2 a.m., whispering. I had a dream she slapped me again. I'd pull her close and hold her until her breathing steadied. She'd started drawing again, this time with more color, but every so often, I'd catch a tiny stick figure in the corner, frowning behind a red X, or a big black house with no windows. The therapist said these were natural. Lily was working through the emotions in the way children do best, quietly, symbolically, without full understanding, but with full feeling. Meanwhile, I returned to my job part-time, trying to give Lily as much stability as possible. My boss was understanding more than I expected. She had raised 2 boys on her own and didn't need much explaining. Take what you need, she told me. Family first. That phrase, family first, used to sound like a command, a trap, something that meant sacrifice yourself. Now, it meant Lily. One rainy Saturday morning, about 2 weeks after we returned from Ohio, Lily and I were sitting at the kitchen table making paper flowers. She was carefully folding purple construction paper while humming a tune she'd picked up from school. I looked at her, and for the first time in days, she didn't seem haunted. But as I reached for more glue, the doorbell rang. My heart immediately dropped. I wasn't expecting anyone. Stay here, I told Lily softly. She nodded and kept folding, unaware of the sudden storm in my chest. I opened the door and froze. Standing on the porch, umbrella dripping and face as pinched as ever, was my mother, Eleanor, I said, because I couldn't bring myself to say Mom. Rachel, she replied, glancing over my shoulder into the house like she had some right to judge its contents. Can we talk? I didn't move. The urge to slam the door was overwhelming. Oh, what could you possibly want? She pursed her lips. Not here. It's raining. May I come in? I hesitated. Part of me screamed no. But the other part, the part conditioned to obey, to avoid scenes, to not cause waves, stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said, voice flat. She stepped in, shook off her umbrella with exaggerated care, and took in the living room. Her eyes flicked to the drawings taped on the fridge, the worn couch with a quilt over the back, the half-finished sunflower painting Lily had been working on. It's cozy, she said, which in Eleanor Carter speak meant cluttered and unimpressive. Say what you came to say, I said, arms crossed. I wanted to apologize, she said, with no trace of actual remorse in her voice. What happened at dinner was regrettable. Regrettable, I snapped. Amanda slapped my daughter. You and Dad sat there like statues. You didn't say a word to stop her. She overreacted, Eleanor allowed, carefully. But Sophie was humiliated. That dress was expensive. I stared at her. Lily didn't spill the juice, and even if she had, nothing justifies hitting a child. Eleanor sighed. You always see things in extremes. Rachel, you always have. It's why you're so difficult. There it was again. Difficult. The word they used to explain away every hurt they caused me. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my voice. You didn't come here just to justify Amanda. What do you want? She hesitated. And for the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness, but discomfort. Amanda's in some trouble, she said finally. I laughed bitterly. Of course, she's being sued. A neighbor's child bumped into Sophie on the sidewalk. And Amanda overreacted again. The boy's parents are threatening legal action. My mouth went dry. She hit another child, I said, stunned. She says she only pushed him, but, well, it's not a good look. And with everything that's happened recently, people are starting to talk. I shook my head. So she's spiraling and now it's my problem. She needs support. My mother said, "We all do. Your father and I can't afford legal fees. Amanda's ex-husband won't help. He's furious and threatening to go for full custody of Sophie. We're asking if you could lend us something? Just until this blows over." I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want me, the daughter you ignored, insulted, and stood against to bail Amanda out after she assaulted my child?" Eleanor's expression darkened. "This is about family." "No," I said. "This is about consequences." She bristled. "You're being vindictive. I'm being a mother," I snapped. "And I'm finally doing what you never could, protecting my child." She fell silent for a long moment. Then she said, voice quieter than before, "You'll turn your back on your sister on us. I turned my back the moment you let Amanda strike my daughter without blinking." Behind me, I heard soft footsteps. I turned to see Lily standing in the hallway, Bella in her arms, watching us with wide, unsure eyes. "Mommy," she asked. I walked over and knelt beside her. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said. "We're just finishing up." She nodded slowly, then looked at my mother. "You're the grandma from Ohio." Eleanor offered a tight smile. "That's right." Lily clutched Bella tighter. "You didn't say sorry when I got hurt." The words hit harder than any argument I could make. Eleanor's face froze. Then she turned to me, lips pressed into a line. "I see," she said coldly. "Well, I suppose I shouldn't have expected much." "No," I said, rising. "You shouldn't have." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Eleanor." She walked out stiffly, umbrella snapping open with a sharp whoosh. As I shut the door, I felt something deep inside me settle. Not peace, exactly, but certainty. The kind that anchors you when the waves come. Lily reached for my hand. She didn't even look sad. She said, "No, baby," I replied, holding her close. Because some people never change. After that day, I never heard from my mother again. Not a text, not a voicemail, not a forwarded message from Amanda. Silence at last. And silence, this time, felt like a gift. But what they left behind wasn't so quiet. Lily's healing took time, and it unfolded in the smallest, most unexpected ways. Some mornings she'd wake up crying but couldn't explain why. Some nights she refused to wear anything but her red hoodie, the one she'd had on during the slap. She said it made her feel invisible, like a superhero. I didn't argue. I let her wear it until summer. Her sessions with Dr. Anna continued every Thursday. Sometimes they built towers from colored blocks and knocked them down again, talking about how things fall apart but can be rebuilt. Other times they painted or played word games. But slowly, piece by piece, Lily began to reclaim something that had been shaken loose. She's still guarded. Dr. Anna told me one afternoon as we sat in her softly lit office, "But she's resilient. She trusts you. That's your greatest asset." I nodded, eyes stinging. I just don't want her to grow up feeling like I did, like love is conditional. Dr. Anna looked at me for a long moment. "You're already giving her what you never had." Rachel. That's how the cycle breaks. Those words echoed in me for days. That weekend, Lily and I went to a local farmer's market. It was the first sunny Saturday in weeks. She held my hand the entire time, pointing excitedly at flower stalls, honey jars, hand-painted birdhouses. She begged for a lemon popsicle and smiled so wide when I said yes that I nearly cried right there in front of the kettle corn stand. Later, we sat on a grassy hill, watching the sky go from blue to peach. Lily leaned her head against my arm and said, "I like it here. It feels like the opposite of Grandma's house." I kissed the top of her head. "That's the idea, sweetheart." As spring melted into summer, I poured my energy into turning our house into a home not just with furniture or framed photos, but with intention. I let Lily help pick out new curtains for her room, bright yellow with tiny white daisies. She chose a nightlight shaped like a fox. We planted herbs in window boxes, painted a chalkboard wall in the kitchen, and named the potted plants like they were family members. "This is Fernie," Lily declared, patting a baby fern. "She's shy but funny." At night, we made up stories. I'd start a sentence once upon a time, in a village made of clouds, and Lily would take it from there, adding dragons that liked knitting or pirates who only stole vegetables. Her voice grew more confident, her laugh came easier, and with each small joy, I felt something in myself begin to mend. Still, sometimes the old wounds pulsed. Memories came without warning, my mother criticizing my handwriting in 3rd grade, my father calling me too sensitive after Amanda made me cry in front of guests. I'd catch myself wondering if I was being too soft with Lily, too indulgent. And I'd hear my father's voice in my head, "She'll walk all over you if you don't toughen up." But then I'd look at Lily, her joy, her gentleness, and remind myself softness is not weakness. My daughter would never grow up afraid to speak, not under my roof. One afternoon, Lily came home from day camp with a drawing. "It's our house," she beamed, holding up the paper. Crayon windows, a slanted roof, crooked sunflowers in the yard. She'd drawn us to me with curly hair and glasses, Lily with her red hoodie and Bella the bunny. Above it, in shaky block letters, she'd written "Me and Mom and Home." I taped it to the fridge immediately. That night, after she was asleep, I pulled out my journal and wrote, "I'm not just building a home for her. I'm rebuilding one inside myself, one where I'm not just tolerated, but safe, not just seen, but loved." A few days later, I received a letter in the mail, no return address. The handwriting was familiar Amanda's. I stood at the mailbox, heart pounding. For a second, I considered tearing it up, but instead, I took it inside, poured myself a cup of tea, and opened it slowly. It was short, handwritten, a mess of apologies and excuses. I don't know what came over me. Things have been hard since the divorce. I'm sorry if Lily was scared. I read it twice, then folded it and slid it into the back of a drawer. Not because I forgave her, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I needed proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined the hurt, that even she knew she'd gone too far. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked Lily up from day camp that afternoon and drove us to the little lake on the edge of town. We ate grilled cheese sandwiches and skipped stones. She laughed every time I missed, which was often. And later, when the sun began to dip and the water turned gold, Lily reached for my hand. "Mom, yeah, I'm glad we don't live in Ohio." I smiled. "Me too. Baby, will we ever go back?" I looked at her so open, so earnest, and shook my head gently. "No. We have everything we need right here." And I meant it. That night, I tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You are safe. You are strong. You are so loved." She yawned and smiled. I know, for the first time in weeks, she fell asleep without her red hoodie. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon, one of those rare days when the world felt perfectly balanced. Lily had just gotten home from day camp, trailing grass clippings and glitter into the house like a tornado in sneakers. I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of mac and cheese, her favorite. Outside, the summer sun filtered through the windows, dust motes spinning like tiny galaxies. I was humming to myself when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something made me swipe anyway. Hello, a voice I hadn't heard in months, flat, brittle, too familiar. Rachel, my mother. I didn't answer right away. Lily was humming behind me at the table, coloring a picture of a giraffe wearing sunglasses. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," Eleanor said, "but something's happened." My chest tightened. If this is about Amanda, it is... Of course it was. There was a pause on the other end. A sigh. Not sadness, not regret, weariness. She's been arrested. My mother said assault on a child. Again, I closed my eyes. A few months ago, I might have felt shock, or anger, or even vindication. But now all I felt was a hollow, exhausted confirmation. I warned you, I said, you protected her, you enabled her, and now a child is paying for it. We didn't know it would go this far. You always say that, I snapped. You said it when she bullied me through high school, when she spread rumors about Nate, when she slapped my daughter. My voice had risen. Lily looked up from the table, wide-eyed. I turned away quickly, walked into the hallway, and closed the door behind me. You always knew what she was, I said, voice low now. You just didn't care, as long as it didn't mess with your perfect picture. There was silence. Then, my mother's voice again, smaller this time. She has no one else. Her ex-husband won't even take Sophie. I blinked. She lost custody. She's in holding. Sophie's with us, for now, but we can't handle this. Rachel, your father and I are overwhelmed. The lawyers, stop, I said. My heart was pounding, not with panic, with anger, a righteous, pulsing fury that had been buried under layers of politeness and obedience for far too long. You want me to do what, fly back to Ohio? Help clean up the mess she made? Take care of a child you never even acknowledged when you had the chance? She's your niece. She's not my responsibility, I snapped. Just like Amanda never took responsibility for anything. Just like you never did. My mother's voice trembled. Please. Rachel. I'm not asking you to fix it. Just talk to her. Maybe she'll listen to you. I almost laughed. Why would she listen to the daughter you treated like a threat her entire life? There was a pause. I could almost hear her swallow. Because she said your name, Eleanor whispered. When they cuffed her, she said, call Rachel. She's the only one who tells the truth. I froze. That sentence. It knocked the breath from my lungs, not because it meant anything, but because it came too late. The apology I waited for as a child, the recognition, the admission that I hadn't been the problem, but it wasn't for me. It was because she needed something. That's not truth, I said quietly. That's desperation. My mother didn't argue. I'm sorry, she finally said, for everything. For how we treated you. For what happened to Lily. I didn't know how to be a different kind of mother. I didn't respond. Because what do you say to a woman who let you break quietly for years and only tried to build bridges when her favorite child fell? You don't need to say anything now, she said. I just wanted you to know. And if you decide not to come back, I understand. There was something final in her tone. I believed her. And that was when I realized I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. We hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time before walking back into the kitchen. Lily looked up. Was that Grandma? Yes, I said. Did she yell at you? I smiled faintly. No, she asked for help. Are we going to help? I sat beside her. Took her small paint-stained hand in mine. No, I said, we're not. She nodded once, like that answer made sense. And maybe it did. That night, after Lily went to bed, I pulled out my old journal. I flipped through pages of rage, grief, guilt, and all the tangled knots that had made up my childhood and early motherhood. And then I wrote, let it end with me. No more rescuing people who never learned to hold themselves accountable. No more chasing apologies from ghosts. And for the first time, I meant it. Over the next few days, I received emails from Eleanor, from my father, who finally broke the silence, from Amanda's lawyer, of all people, asking if I'd testify about Amanda's character in court to show the court she came from a good family. I deleted them all. Because the truth was simple, Amanda didn't come from a good family. None of us did. We came from a polished family, A rehearsed family. A house built on brittle smiles and silent dinners and don't cause a scene. And now that house was crumbling. I wasn't going to be the one who held it up. About a week later, Lily and I went to the butterfly conservatory at the edge of town. She'd been begging to go since spring. We wandered between hanging plants and misted air, butterflies dancing around us like scraps of stained glass. Lily held out her hand, hoping one would land on her finger. "Do butterflies remember their cocoons?" she asked me suddenly. I paused. "What do you mean, like, do they remember being stuck?" I smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe they remember the feeling of becoming something new." She looked thoughtful. "I think I remember being sad. But I don't feel sad now." I squeezed her hand. "That's because you've grown wings." She grinned and chased after a blue butterfly with a giggle that made my throat tighten. This is what breaking the cycle looked like. Not revenge, not lawsuits, not finally getting the apology you deserved. It was this peace, this child, this ordinary, extraordinary joy. That night, I received one final voicemail. My father's voice. Quiet, hollow. "We lost her, Amanda. She's being transferred. We don't know when we'll see her again. I still don't agree with what you did. But I understand now why you left. I hope you're happy." I deleted the message. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt free. A few weeks later, Lily and I hosted a backyard picnic with a few families from her day camp. I made sandwiches. She made place cards out of glitter and popsicle sticks. We lit candles in jars as the sun went down, and Lily performed a silly puppet show for the kids under the porch light. That night, as I tucked her in, she pulled me close and whispered, "I'm glad we have our own family now." And we did. It didn't look like the picture-perfect ones from commercials. It was messy, loud, full of mismatched socks and dishes in the sink and drawings taped to every surface, but it was ours. Built not from obligation or blood, but from the choice to love better, to be better. And no one was ever going to take that from us again. In the months that followed, the noise from Ohio faded into a distant hum like traffic far off in the background. You know it's there, but it no longer intrudes. There were no more calls, no more letters, no more messages asking for help, apologies, or explanations. That part of my life had finally run out of breath, and in its silence, I could finally hear everything else. Lily thrived in the stillness. She joined a community art class on Wednesday afternoons at the local library, run by a sweet retired teacher named Mrs. Hanley who believed in pipe cleaners and glitter with holy conviction. Lily would come home with messy hands and radiant eyes, her backpack stuffed with drawings of dancing frogs or cities made of marshmallows. She had friends now. Real ones. Kids who laughed too loudly and wore mismatched socks and thought making mud pies was the height of comedy. There was a little boy named Theo who invited her to his dinosaur birthday party, and a girl named Sky who wore butterfly clips in her hair and shared her juice boxes without asking for anything in return. Watching Lily come alive like that, it felt like someone had turned the lights on inside her. As for me, I learned to settle into the stillness too. I went back to work full-time, but I kept boundaries. I didn't take late meetings. I didn't bring my laptop to the dinner table. I no longer measured my worth in productivity. I measured it in the way Lily ran to me after school, and how many nights we cooked dinner together, even if it was just boxed mac and cheese again. We had rituals now. Friday night movies with popcorn, Saturday morning pancakes always in funny shapes, usually animals. Sunday walks through the park with our golden retriever, Max, who Lily had begged for on her 7th birthday and now treated like her fluffy little brother. We started a gratitude jar, a mason jar where we dropped in little folded notes of things we were thankful for. Some were simple. Lily didn't cry at the dentist. Others were profound in a way only children can be. Mommy said I'm brave even when I feel small. I added one that said Lily laughed in her sleep tonight. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a big breakthrough. It looks like a child giggling in her dreams. It looks like burnt pancakes you eat anyway. It looks like saying no to the people who taught you to doubt yourself, and yes to the ones who remind you what love is supposed to feel like. One afternoon, Lily came home with a note from school, an invitation to family day. She handed it to me nervously. "It's for parents and grandparents," she said. "Is it okay if it's just you?" I knelt beside her and met her eyes. "Sweetheart, we might not have a big family like some other kids, but we have a strong one. You and me? That's more than enough." She smiled. "Can Max come?" I laughed. "If he wears pants." We went to family day the following week. Lily wore her sparkly blue sneakers and held my hand like she used to when she was little. We played silly relay games, ate snow cones, and laughed until my cheeks hurt. One of the other moms, Carla, whose son Jonah was in Lily's class, walked over as Lily and Jonah ran ahead together. "I just wanted to say," she said gently, "your daughter is incredible. So kind, so patient. My son adores her." My throat tightened. "Thank you. That means everything." Carla hesitated. "I hope this isn't too forward, but do you guys have any family nearby? I just never see anyone else at pickup." I shook my head. "No, just us." Carla nodded slowly. "Well, if you ever want to join us for Sunday lunch, we always have extra. My mom makes enough pasta to feed an army." And just like that, another door opened. We started going over some Sundays. Carla's family was loud, warm, a little chaotic. There were always kids running around, someone burning garlic bread, someone laughing too loud. It was everything my childhood hadn't been, and yet it felt like coming home. They never asked about my past. They just made room at the table. For me, for Lily. One night, after we got home from dinner, Lily turned to me as I unlocked the front door. "Mom, yeah, baby, do you think families can grow? Like plants?" I smiled. "What do you mean, like you plant them with love and then more people join? Like branches and flowers and stuff?" I crouched to her level. "Yes. I think the best families are the ones you grow on purpose." She nodded seriously. "I think we're doing a good job then." And in that moment, I felt something bloom inside me, a piece I hadn't known I was still missing. There are still hard days. There are still moments when I flinch at loud voices or wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm giving Lily the kind of childhood she deserves. But then, I look around at her drawings on the fridge, at Max snoring on the rug, at the stack of library books waiting for bedtime, and I know we're okay. Not perfect, not untouched by the past, but free. Free to define our family, free to love without fear, free to be soft in a world that once told us softness was weakness. Every now and then, I get curious. I search Amanda's name online. I check court records. Sometimes I see a headline, a mention, a sentence buried in an article. But I don't read too deeply. I don't need to know how that story ends. Because mine isn't about her anymore. It's about a little girl with purple sneakers and paint on her fingers, who once asked me if bad people can stop being bad. And it's about the woman I became, and the answer, it's been 3 years. 3 years since the slap. 3 years since I walked out of that house and didn't look back. 3 years since I stopped apologizing for choosing peace. And in that time, our life has blossomed slowly, unevenly, but beautifully. Lily is 9 now. She's taller, braver, still wildly imaginative. Her hair is longer and constantly messy because she refuses to let me brush it when she's on a creative streak. She writes short stories about underwater kingdoms and girls who turn into comets when they're angry. She still sleeps with Bella, her beloved bunny, though now Bella wears glasses made of pipe cleaners. Sometimes I catch her watching me with those big, thoughtful eyes. She never says it, but I know she remembers. Not the details, not the dinner table or the slap, but the tension, the confusion, the way I held her tighter than usual during those first nights back in Asheville. Children store pain differently, deeply, quietly, but they store healing the same way. And if there's one thing I know now with certainty, it's this: we have both healed. Not by pretending the past didn't happen, but by growing something so bright and full that the shadows just don't matter as much anymore. Last month, I was asked to speak at a local women's shelter as part of a Cycles of Renewal panel. They wanted stories of generational change, women who had faced inherited patterns and chosen a different path. I almost said no, not because I didn't have something to say, but because I hadn't told this story aloud since it happened. Writing about it in my journal was one thing. Saying it into a microphone with strangers listening felt raw. But then I thought about Lily, how she would want to see me be brave. So I said yes. The night of the panel, I stood on a small stage in a room filled with folding chairs and warm light. The audience was a mix: young moms with tired eyes, older women with lined faces and strong shoulders, volunteers and counselors, and in the front row Lily, wearing her sparkly headband and clutching her sketchbook. I took a breath and began. I was raised in a house where silence was more powerful than shouting, where love had rules, where obedience was rewarded and sensitivity was punished. I told them about Amanda, about my parents, about the night my daughter was slapped and the cold faces that watched it happen. I told them about the car ride home, the therapy, the long, soft work of relearning what safety feels like. And I told them this: we are not born knowing how to protect our children, especially when we were never protected ourselves. But love teaches us. If we're willing to listen, if we're willing to unlearn what we thought was normal, then we get to write a new story. When I stepped down, Lily jumped into my arms. "You were the bravest one," she whispered. No applause has ever meant more. This morning, Lily and I planted sunflowers in the front yard. We'd done it every spring since that first year back in Asheville. It was our quiet tradition, part ritual, part metaphor, part excuse to get muddy and laugh too hard. As we pressed the seeds into the soil, she asked, "Do you think flowers miss the dirt once they grow out of it?" I looked at her. The sunlight in her curls, her hands brown with earth. "No," I said. "I think they're grateful for it. But they're even more grateful to rise." She smiled. "I like that." So did I. We finished planting, cleaned up, and made lemonade. As we sat on the porch swing, one I bought secondhand and repainted blue, Lily leaned against me and asked, "Do you think we'll ever see them again?" She didn't say who. She didn't have to. I looked out at our blooming yard, the paper lanterns strung between trees, Max chasing butterflies in the background. "I don't think so," I said gently. "But if we did, I think we'd be okay." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "I think I'd be okay too." That evening, I pulled out the gratitude jar. We'd let it fill for almost 6 months without emptying it. Lily and I took turns unfolding the slips. I made a new friend at camp. Max learned to roll over. Mom didn't yell when I broke the vase. Lily hugged me for no reason and said, "You're my favorite grown-up." Today felt light. So many little moments, so many tiny victories. It made me realize something I hadn't dared to believe in that dark dining room 3 years ago. This is what freedom looks like. Not revenge, not confrontation, but peace. Chosen peace. Peace with boundaries, softness, and safety. Peace that grows, blooms, multiplies. Peace we build together. The next day, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. The handwriting was familiar. It wasn't Eleanor's, and it wasn't Amanda's. It was Sophie's, my niece. Amanda's daughter, now 13. I opened it slowly, unsure of what I'd find. "Dear Aunt Rachel, I don't know if you'll read this, or if you want to, but I found your name in an old notebook and I remembered your daughter, Lily. I remember the dinner. I remember the yelling. I remember how no one said anything when it happened. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I was scared. I'm not scared anymore. I just wanted to say thank you for protecting Lily, for leaving, for being the one adult who didn't act like it was normal. Maybe one day I can meet Lily again, if that's okay. Love, Sophie. I held the letter for a long time, not crying, just sitting in the silence that used to hurt and now held something gentle. I walked out onto the porch, letter in hand. Lily looked up from her sketchbook. Who's it from? I smiled. A girl who's learning to grow her own wings.